Hollywood has always been a land of bright lights, unforgettable performances, and timeless legends. But some names go beyond just acting. These were not just men playing tough characters, they were tough. Their silence spoke louder than words. Their eyes told stories of pain and survival, and their presence carried a weight no script could capture. Charles Bronson, Lee Marvin, Audie Murphy, Steve McQueen, Robert Mitchum, and Anthony Quinn. These were the faces of grit, rebellion, and unshakable strength. For them, toughness wasn't a role. It was a reality shaped by war, poverty, loss, and relentless struggle. This is the story of men who didn't just portray toughness on screen, they lived it. These are the true tough guys of Hollywood. If James Cagney is called Hollywood's first true tough guy, it wouldn't be wrong. In the 1930s and 40s, he redefined gangster roles and gave them a whole new identity. In classics like The Public Enemy and White Heat, his style, the gleam in his eyes, and his way of speaking made him both dangerous and unforgettable. Forgettable. But Cagney wasn't just tough on screen. He was just as hard-edged in real life. He never used a stunt double, performed his own fight scenes, and even once landed a real punch on a fellow actor. Physically fit, skilled in boxing and dance, and filled with intelligence, Cagney was a force to be reckoned with. He even stood up to Hollywood's biggest studio, Warner Bros., and took legal action to fight for his rights, an unthinkable move at the time. He wasn't just naturally tough, he was a dignified artist who never compromised on his principles. James Cagney is a name that redefined what it means to be a tough guy, linking it not just to strength, but to self-respect, courage, and unwavering integrity. John Wayne, often known as the Duke, was the face of Hollywood that turned masculinity, honor, and bravery into a symbol on the big screen. From the 1930s to the 1970s, he starred in over 170 films, most of them westerns and war dramas. His steady walk, deep voice, and unwavering gaze became trademarks that defined manhood for generations to come. His role as U.S. Marshal Rooster Cogburn in True Grit, 1969, earned him an Oscar, while films like The Searchers, Stagecoach, and The Green Berets immortalized his tough and unbreakable persona. But John Wayne wasn't just tough in the movies. He was known in real life for his patriotism, conservatism, and strong principles. He battled cancer twice and never appeared weak. Wayne never took acting lessons, nor did he rely on stunt doubles. His style was natural and his impact lasting. He wasn't just an actor, he was a pillar of Hollywood who taught the world what it truly means to be a tough guy. Kirk Douglas was one of the boldest actors in Hollywood history, a man whose rugged face, deep cleft chin, and fearless demeanor made him an indomitable hero on the big screen. In the film Spartacus, 1960, his portrayal of a rebel leader was so powerful that he became more than just a movie hero. He became a symbol of freedom. Douglas's tough guy image wasn't limited to his roles. It was deeply rooted in his real life. He served in the Navy during World War II and later became one of the few voices in Hollywood to openly challenge the studio system. During the era of blacklisting, he took the courageous step of publicly crediting screenwriter Dalton Trumbo, an act of remarkable political bravery. He earned his place in cinema not just through acting, but through unwavering principles. He performed many of his own dangerous scenes, gave his all in fight sequences, and brought to each role a confidence that few actors could match. Living to the age of 103, Douglas lived life like a battle and emerged victorious. He will always be remembered as one of Hollywood's most authentic tough guys. Charlton Heston was a name that embodied greatness, strength, and unshakable resolve in Hollywood. His iconic performance in Ben-Hur, 1959, especially the legendary chariot race scene, not only earned him an Oscar, but cemented his image as the face of the powerful hero. Whether it was his role as Moses in the Ten Commandments, or the lone human defying all odds in Planet of the Apes, Heston appeared in every role as if he were cast in iron. But his tough guy persona wasn't confined to the screen. He was a true leader in real life. He raised his voice for freedom of expression, constitutional rights, and most notably, the Second Amendment. As president of the National Rifle Association, NRA, he spoke boldly, regardless of how fierce the opposition was. His famous words, "From my cold, dead hands," remain a symbol of defiance and tough guy spirit to this day. Heston didn't just portray strength in his characters. By standing up for his beliefs, principles, and liberty, he proved that a true tough guy is forged not just in body, but in character. Charles Bronson was the name that redefined the silent but deadly tough guy in Hollywood. The deep lines on his face, the piercing eyes, and the intense silence all signaled one thing. This was a man who feared no one. In the Death Wish series, his character transforms from an ordinary man into a vengeful vigilante, and Bronson played the role in such a way that he became a symbol of collective rage and pain for an entire era. In films like The Magnificent Seven, The Dirty Dozen, and Once Upon a Time in the West, his presence felt like an unstoppable force. But Bronson's tough guy persona wasn't just for the screen. He lived it. Raised in poverty, shaped by hunger and hard labor, he once worked in coal mines and served in the Air Force during World War II. The grit in his eyes reflected a reality that most Hollywood actors could only pretend to understand. He spoke very little, but when he did, every word carried weight. Charles Bronson wasn't just an actor. He was forged from steel. A true tough guy who didn't just play strong men in films, he was one in real life. Lee Marvin was an actor who, on the surface, seemed like a simple man, but his presence carried a quiet intensity that hit the screen like an explosion. His signature deep voice, expressionless face, and blunt delivery became his trademarks. In films like The Dirty Dozen, Point Blank, and Hell in the Pacific, he came across as a man who could take pain, endure a beating, and still keep fighting. And that was his true strength. Marvin's toughness wasn't limited to acting. He was a real-life soldier who served on the front lines with the United States Marine Corps during World War II. He faced enemy fire and was seriously wounded, yet remained a part of the war effort. That experience stayed with him, and it echoed in every role he played. The realness in his performances came from the warrior spirit within. He didn't waste time on theatrics or bravado. Lee Marvin was a tough guy because he was tough. And that's exactly why his impact still lingers today. Audie Murphy's story is perhaps the most inspiring in all of Hollywood. A man who looked tough on screen because he truly was tough in real life. During World War II, at just 19 years old, he became the most decorated American soldier, earning more than 33 awards, including the Medal of Honor. He once climbed atop a burning tank to single-handedly fight off enemy forces, took bullets, but never gave up. And those very battlefield experiences became the foundation of his film career. In To Hell and Back, he portrayed himself, showing millions what real bravery looks like. There was a depth in his eyes that didn't come from acting, but from the harsh realities of war. Audie Murphy didn't rely on dramatic speeches or flashy heroics. He quietly did things most people couldn't even imagine. Despite his war wounds, inner pain, and lifelong struggle with PTSD, he rose to become a successful actor, a poet, and a voice of courage for others. Audie Murphy wasn't just a tough guy. He was a true hero, as brave behind the scenes as he was on screen. Steve McQueen was not just a tough guy in his films. He was one in real life, too, someone who refused to bow to any rule, power, or system. In movies like Bullet, The Great Escape, Papillon, and The Getaway, he played characters who didn't run from the law, enemies, or fate. They faced them head-on. His eyes held rebellion, his movements showed confidence, and his silences carried intensity. But McQueen's toughness wasn't just an actor's facade. It was forged through a difficult childhood, time in reform school, and service in the Navy, where even there, he was known for fights and defiance. He was an expert motorcycle rider, a skilled car racer, and an actor who insisted on doing his own stunts. His approach to life was simple: embrace danger and never back down. His personal life was equally turbulent: alcohol, fights, the pressure of fame. But through it all, he walked his own path, on his own terms, in his own way. Steve McQueen never claimed to be tough, but everything he did proved that he was the real deal. A wild yet dignified spirit who never stopped moving forward. Robert Mitchum was an actor who often seemed indifferent, half asleep even. But behind that sleepy gaze lay a force, cunning, and silence that felt genuinely dangerous. In films like Out of the Past, Cape Fear, and The Night of the Hunter, he played villains and anti-heroes who appeared simple on the surface but were, underneath, dangerous, complex, and unstoppable. Mitchum had a way about him, as if he didn't care about anything. And perhaps that was his greatest strength. In real life, too, he was tough. As a young man, he faced unemployment, worked on the railroads, and even spent time in jail. He served in the Merchant Marine during World War II and was once arrested for marijuana possession, but even that couldn't derail his career. There was a kind of fearlessness in him that didn't come from training or performance. It was simply part of who he was. He was a tough guy who didn't express emotions through words, but through his sheer presence. Robert Mitchum was the kind of man who didn't make noise. But when he was on screen, everyone went silent. Anthony Quinn was an actor whose personality was a powerful blend of strength, passion, and a warrior's spirit. Of Mexican descent, he not only carved out a place for himself in Hollywood against the tide of racial prejudice, but he brought that same intensity into the roles he played. In films like Zorba the Greek, La Strada, and Lawrence of Arabia, his performances weren't just acting. They were living, breathing life. Quinn's rugged face, the depth in his eyes, and the thunder in his voice set him apart from the rest. He was a fighter at heart. Raised in poverty, he lost his father at a young age and came up through boxing rings, steel factories, and architectural drawing before finding his way into film. He once said, "I broke down every door I ever walked through. I never waited for permission." Anthony Quinn's toughness wasn't just physical. It lived in his soul. He carried a defiance, a fire, and an unshakable will that refused to bend. He was an artist, a philosopher, and a rebel. A true tough guy who lived life with complete and unrelenting intensity. If these legendary tough guys inspired you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss more stories of real grit and timeless icons. Tell us in the comments, which of these legends do you think was the toughest of them all? And if you want more raw, powerful stories from classic Hollywood, stay tuned. The legends never die.